for sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 0.
Good morning and welcome to another fresh edition of your breakfast on Leadership Television Inside Nigeria. Today is November 19, 2024, and my name is Winifred Ogbebo, your host on the program. On today's show, we are only going to be looking at 4 headline stories and, of course, maybe read some of the headline stories on this program. Today, of course, we have some papers on our menu for review as usual, including Nigeria's most influential newspaper, Leadership. We will say with what leadership is leading with this Tuesday. Leadership says tax bills, lawmakers dare governors queue behind Tinubu. Tax bills, lawmakers dare governors queue behind Tinubu. Reform will diversify revenue base, ensure equity, Speaker. Some governors threaten us with 2027 tickets at Gbese, that is the deputy spokesman for House of Representatives. Northern lawmakers will be guided by national interest, Doguwa. Leading story today on leadership. Tax bills, lawmakers dare governors queue behind Tinubu. Says reform will diversify revenue base, ensure equity, Speaker. Some governors threatening us with 2027 tickets at Gbese. Northern lawmakers will be guided by national interest to Doguwa. Let's just see what snippet of that story, what the story is saying on page 4 of Leadership. The House of Representatives has said the proposed tax reform bills aim to diversify Nigeria's revenue base, promote equity, and foster an enabling environment for investment and innovation. The House of Representatives Speaker Abbas Tajuddin stated this at the People's House interactive session on tax reform bills organized by the House in Abuja on Monday. They, however, said that as representatives of the people, lawmakers must approach the reforms thoughtfully and understand their potential implications for every segment of society. These include the Nigerian Tax Bill 2024, which is expected to provide the fiscal framework for taxation in the country, and the Tax Administration Bill, which will give a clear and concise legal framework for all taxes in the country and reduce disputes. Others are the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, which will repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and establish the Nigeria Revenue Service, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill, which will create a tax tribunal and a tax ombudsman. They are presently before the National Assembly and have generated controversy. The Northern Governors Forum had rejected the new derivation-based model for value-added tax VAT distribution proposed in one of the bills, when the forum insisted that the provision did not align with the interests of the North and other sub-national entities. Article 77 of the Nigerian Tax Administration Bill 2024 provides that notwithstanding any formula that any other law may prescribe, the net revenue accruing by virtue of the operation of Chapter 6 of the Nigerian Tax Act, VAT, shall be distributed as follows: 10% to the federal government, 55% to the state government and the Federal Capital Territory, and 35% to the local government. 60% of the amount standing to the credit of states and local governments shall be distributed among them based on derivation. This is just some parts of that leading story on leadership today. Tax bills, lawmakers dare governors queue behind Tinubu. Of course, it will be recalled that this tax bills has been generating controversy among some sections of Nigerians with the Northern Group, Northern Leaders Forum, saying that the tax bills are not in their interest. That was just part of that leading story. We'll move on to other stories gracing the cover of leadership today. 100 regain sight as Senator Bello sponsors surgery. Bandits kill farmer, kidnap 6 in Taraba. Federal government commences mpox vaccination. MD can strike crippled schools, hospitals. And we have the picture of a dilapidated government township primary school at Old Bukuru Park, just North local government area, Plateau State, as captured on the cover of leadership, photo by Nan. We still have these kind of primary schools existing in this 21st century in Nigeria. We move towards the mindset of leadership. Obasanjo lacks moral right to criticize Tinubu presidency. And on the business boss, POS operators double transaction charges, blame cash scarcity. Above the mindset of leadership, 34 states fail to access 135 billion naira UBEC grants. Gunmen kill 4 security operatives in Anambra. The story runs on page 23 of leadership. And with that, we move to the page 3 of the paper where we have our permanent fixture, our stand. Our stand is the editorial of the paper, and of course is the slant what the view of the paper is saying for that day. And today's stand is on a minister's perception of his job. A minister's perception of his job. Today's stand on leadership newspaper. From that, we move to the back page where we have Tuesday column with Abdurrauf Aliyu. Today's column is Abdurrauf Aliyu is writing on when the storm rages, roots hold firm. When the storm rages, roots hold firm. I take a quote from that. Economics is not just about mathematics, it's about the lives of people, their struggles, their dreams, and their very survival. Without considering human welfare, economic growth is meaningless and can only lead to instability. Quotes from that Tuesday column, when the storm rages, roots hold firm. And for more continuation of the headline stories, the editorial and inside stories, log on to the website of Leadership newspaper, www.leadership.ng. From that leadership, we move over to the next paper we have on our menu, and that is The Punch. The Punch says corruption allegations, presidency attacks OBJ as opposition backs ex-president. Corruption allegations, presidency attacks OBJ as opposition backs ex-president. Federal government says Obasanjo lacks moral grounds to attack Tinubu. Opposition insists ex-leader right on corruption, bad governance. We have the picture of President Bola Tinubu and the First Lady with the president and wife of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, during the G20 Leaders Summit at Museum of Modern Art, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil on Monday. The picture is from State House. Other stories gracing the cover of The Punch. Ondopo Ayedatiwa gets certificate of return Wednesday amid protest. Probe begins as Plateau Market fire got 107 shops. Government economic reforms unfruitful, says man, LCCI. Beside the masthead of The Punch, Senate invites top doctors over strike. Federal government plans fresh 31 trillion naira borrowing. Luggage delay to attract $170, 10,000 naira fines, NCAA. Default, 34 states FCT shown 263 billion naira UBEC grants. With that, we conclude the review of front headline stories on The Punch newspaper. For more, log on to www.punchng.com. The next paper on our lineup is Daily Sun. Daily Sun has same headline story with that of The Punch. Presidency is back at ex-president Obasanjo, says he lacks moral credibility to critique Tinubu, accuses him of running most corrupt presidency, wasting $16 billion without enough steady electricity. Presidency is back at ex-president Obasanjo, says he lacks moral credibility to critique Tinubu, accuses him of running most corrupt presidency, wasting $16 billion without enough steady electricity. Underneath, 34 states FCT yet to access 2024 UBE matching grant, UBEG. Tinubu working to take Nigeria out of poverty, Edu. Bloody day in Anambra, 5 kids as sit-at-home returns. That takes us gradually to the masthead of Daily Sun, where we have federal government inaugurates Council for Protection of Critical Assets Infrastructure, reiterates commitment to technology-driven data in education. Beside the masthead of Daily Sun, Nigeria's foreign debt servicing soars to 3.8 trillion naira in 8 months. That concludes the review of front headline stories today on Daily Sun. For more, log on to www.thesun.ng. From Daily Sun, we move over to the next paper on our lineup, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian says 18 million out of school children, 34 states ditch UBE grants as unused funds surpass 135 billion naira. The leading story on The Guardian today, Tuesday, November 19, 2024. 18 million out of school children, 34 states ditch UBE, that is Universal Basic Education grants, as unused funds surpass 135 billion naira. We have an illustration graph and just beneath that leading story, and we have high dropout rates linked to poor funding of education, corruption, poverty, poor implementation of the Child Rights Act, and lack of political will to address the problems. We have 18 million out of school children, and let's take it state by state from states that have yet to access these grants. We have we have 581 million naira coming from Kano State, 1.39 billion Katsina, 2.6 billion Bauchi, 1.39 billion Yobe, 1.39 billion Kaduna, 1.39 billion Kebbi, 1.39 billion Niger, 4.26 billion Ogun, 2.6 billion Ekiti, 1.39 billion Lagos, 4.28 billion Abia, 3.54 billion Imo, 2.6 billion Anambra, 2.6 billion Ebonyi, 2.6 billion Adamawa, 2.6 billion Edo, 2.04 billion Cross River, 1.39 billion Bayelsa, 1.39 billion Gombe, 1.39 billion Akwa Ibom, 1.39 billion Kogi, 1.39 billion from Plateau, 1.39 billion FCT Abuja, 697 million Rivers, 20 million Benue. From the analysis so far, is only Benue that has a least amount to assess. Other stories gracing the cover of The Guardian: IMF, Nigeria, others need longer monetary tightening regime to tame inflation. Chemical industry says 28 companies exited since January. FRS boss makes case for tax bills as federal government calms governors on reform. Presidency berates Obasanjo for criticizing successors. Rivers Council board predicts tough battle for Fubara ahead of 2027 elections. Senate to sanction MDAs for non-compliance with financial obligations. Ayedatiwa's financial strength earned him victory in Ondo. The news runs on page 3 of The Guardian, and that also concludes the review of front headline stories on The Guardian newspaper today, Tuesday, November 19, 2024. For more of these continuation headline stories and inside stories, as well as the editorial, log on to the website of The Guardian, www.guardian.ng. From The Guardian, we move over to the last paper we have on our lineup today, and that is Vanguard. Vanguard's headline story says LCCI has born analysts others pick holes in 2025 budget. It will take magic wand to succeed, as born. Funding will be a challenge, financial analysts. Let's see part of that story on page 5 of the paper. The federal government's proposed 2025 budget has come under attack by industry groups and analysts who expressed disappointment over the assumptions, benchmarks, and figures in the budget. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI, faulted the key parameters and assumptions on which the proposed 2025 budget were based, saying they are too optimistic in the face of current realities. In a statement yesterday, the Director General of LCCI, Dr. Chinyere Amona, said the assumptions of an exchange rate at 1,400 naira per dollar and inflation rate at 15.8% in particular are unrealistic. However, a review of the key parameters and assumptions on which the 2025 budget is being proposed appears to be too optimistic in the face of current realities as recorded in the economic and social indicators. Particularly, the assumption of an exchange rate at 1,400 naira is too fragile to work with against the current average of above 1,600 naira to a dollar in both the official and parallel markets. Assuming an inflation rate at 15.8% does not reflect the unabating factors pushing up both the headline and food inflation, with inflation rising to 33.8% as of October 2024, it is unrealistic to assume a steep 51 percentage point crash within a year. These are paragraphs from that headline story on Vanguard newspaper today. SCCI has borne analysts orders peak holes in 2025 budget. It was also part of what we discussed yesterday on this program. Other stories gracing the cover of Vanguard newspaper: Zenith Bank unveils Zenith Tech Fair 4.0. Bandits attack Southern Kaduna communities, seek military intervention. Still on Vanguard newspaper front headlines review. Presidency to Obasanjo: Nigeria's economic woes began in your government. And presidential spokesman Daniel Bwala: WW3 looms, that is World War III looms as Russia vows response if Ukraine uses long-range missiles. Sports: 2025 AFCON qualifiers. Rwanda beat Super Eagles in Uyo. Sad. And above the masthead of Vanguard: rethink reform strategies. IMF advises Nigeria, Ghana, others. Dangote refinery $6 billion to import crude. Sit at home. Government kill 5 security operatives. PG critically injured in Anambra, Abia. Nigeria must address 6% tax to GDP ratio, coming from Speaker of House of Representatives Tajuddin Abbas. That concludes the review of front headline stories today on Vanguard newspaper. Today, Tuesday, November 19, 2024. For continuation of these headline stories, inside stories, log on to the website of Vanguard, www.vanguardngr.com. With that also, we've come to the end of today's Inside Nigeria. Don't forget to join us on our website, www.leadership.ng, for more continuation of these headline stories. My name is Winifred Ubebo once again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have